With Super Pets, we set out to make a modern and original film with well-developed characters and stunning environments.
You start with the script and the ideas, and we really gathered a lot of reference from the beginning, looking at the DC canon. There's so much there to dive into.
Our Metropolis is a Metropolis that has never been seen. It's classic, but it also is modern, in some ways futuristic.
We looked at the optimistic attitude that the comic books had, the streamlined cars, the buildings. A lot of Art Deco was in the architecture.
We were referencing the original from the comics and trying to incorporate some of the design aesthetics to make everything in this movie look amazing.
Huh? What the? Let me just iron that out. You should call me Iron Man. No.
We built out the world and created 4 guiding principles. It needed to be optimistic, it needed to be relatable, it needed to be classic, and it needed to be caricatured. By optimistic, we wanted to create a world that had lots of verticals. With relatable, we wanted to do things like give the CG not a harsh feel, but more of a painted feel. For caricatured, we wanted the characters not to be real. We wanted to bring in some of the caricatured world of the animated features to that and to the pets as well. The classic aspect, we wanted to reference some beautiful golden era artwork.
You know, when we looked at it, we felt like there's a golden age of DC Comics that lent itself well to this, even though it takes place modern day. So that's really infused into the design. A lot of the artwork kind of is infused by the painting style of that era.
With Metropolis, we carefully worked out the design language of those buildings, and we built what we called a crowd city that goes on. Because the idea is it's meant to be an endless city. It's meant to be huge. When you work with a whole bunch of artists who are based in Vancouver, there's elements of the Vancouver world, but the co-director Sam is very much from New York, and the park in the middle, Hobbs Park, is very much based on Washington Square Park, which has special memories for him in New York. Hop up and away! This was the image that we used to define the look of the Golden City, Metropolis, the utopia that we were trying to achieve. And we did lots of variations and changes along the way, but the Daily Planet obviously was that building there. With this building, it's one that our art director, Ryan Carson, came up with like his shark fin shape that Sam really liked. One of the ideas was a concept of balanced asymmetry. So with all the buildings, part of them are symmetrical, but a lot of them are actually asymmetrical. So if you look at the base of the buildings, often they have a difference on one side to the other. The idea was for it not to feel exactly like a real world building, but have a bit of a design sense that was more interesting.
If you look closely at our images and you pause them, you can see the brushstrokes as if someone painted them.
Sam and Jared were very keen on making it feel like if a painter were going to paint this, how would they choose where to put the detail, where it's important and where it tells the story?
It just gives it a nice feeling, and it feels like it's in the bones of DC.
The vehicles in particular, we definitely looked at 30s cars, and the streamlined shapes was something we wanted to maintain. But then we wanted to modernize that so it didn't feel like it was just straight up a Studebaker or something really, really old. We really tried to push those proportions so that sometimes it felt like a tube of toothpaste. You sort of squeezed from one end, and so the front came out and felt a little bit stronger. And just making sure that nothing felt perfect. Just added a little bit of variation in there. It's subtle.
We meet the shelter pets in a place called Tail Huggers, a local Metropolis animal shelter.
We wanted it to be the warm, positive place. It's somewhere where Patty, the shelter lady, is trying really hard to get these animals a new home.
Is that new perfume?
It's cat pee.
But we also wanted it to feel a bit like a classroom on a summer's day. You're a bit lazy and it's all just a little bit boring. Then you go to the other extreme and we have Lexus Tower.
Luthor.
In real world scale, it'd be 1.8 kilometers high. It's a really epic structure that was very minimalist and very sharp edged. We wanted just a slight feeling of a surgeon's table. Everything's very clean and silver. It's the least golden part of the whole of Metropolis.
Are you sure about this?
I'm afraid it's the only way.
So Krypton, we have that moment in the original film, which is so poignant and that everyone still remembers. We wanted to capture that, but bring it into this sort of caricatured, animated world. And yeah, we had a lot of fun.
The Pole of Justice was a fun one to dive into.
So
What is this place anyway? Is this some type of fancy DMV?
I remember it from, being a kid watching the Super Friends. And for me, it was always this magical place, like, oh, they have a fountain out the front with the big spiky statue, which does nothing, but it looks great.
It's the Hall of Justice.
So the mural, we thought that it would be pretty awesome to have something right at the front which says, this is the home of the Justice League. And just that feeling, like if you ever went in there, it must be just the most magical place. We wanted to recreate that feeling, like you're standing outside of this place and you just know that something amazing is inside. For people who've never seen the Hall of Justice before, how do we tell them that this is more than a DMV?
He seems sad and defeated.
So it is a DMV.
We're really pushing familiar characters like the Justice League in a new style, where we really push how caricatured and cartoony they are in a sense of really feeling fresh and exciting.
I'm Aquaman. Oh, great. These jabronis.
We wanted something that held together stylistically, that, when you saw the whole Justice League lineup, that they all related to each other in a good way. They had to work together. They had to function as a team.
I miss my parents.
We had a whole team of really great designers, and it's tough designing the Justice League because you've seen them already. And we picked and chose from different little things, like a bit of the old Fleischer in Superman's design. Cyborg's costume is a little bit from his 80s when he was first introduced. So we kind of grabbed some of our favorite things, and then there's our own stuff.
I like your laser thing, but it looks better in green.
There's a lot of fun that we had with those designs, and especially the surfacing, the way we did the textures. We wanted to give it the feeling of being a painting, but when your characters move, how would it look like if a painting moves? The way the light travels across the surface is affected by paint strokes. So at any point, wherever they move, you see the feeling of a paint stroke.
It was also important to us to have a really diverse lineup of our characters in terms of ethnicity and their body shapes and types, and we just really wanted it to look like it represented the whole world in every way in our Justice League.
It's so great to be able to create a new corner of DC's cinematic universe with Super Pets.
The idea that you can take a classic DC universe